So when we looked at the before and after photos of the Grand Canyon, we could see that the Grand Canyon's rocks and landscape have definitely changed over time. They've been more kind of chiseled away. They've been affected by different natural processes. These processes are known as weathering, erosion, and deposition. So these are the three processes that constantly cause the Earth's surface to change. So the Earth, over the course of hundreds of thousands of million years, has changed over and over due to these three processes. So let's take a look at the first process. This is weathering. Weathering is the breakdown of minerals and or rocks on or near the Earth's surface. There are two different kinds of weathering. There's physical weathering and chemical weathering. We're going to look at the difference between the two. So what does weathered mean? So when we think of something being weathered, we're thinking about like larger rocks being broken down into smaller pieces. So maybe pebbles, sand, etc. So weathered means the Earth's solid surface, so what we walk on, is gradually broken down into smaller and smaller pieces, and it happens all the time, and it happens naturally. So again, weathering is the breakdown. So we're going from something bigger to something smaller. The first type of weathering is physical weathering. So physical weathering is changes to the appearance or how rocks look. So it doesn't really change what the rock is made up of, but it changes how it looks. Some causes of physical weathering are wind, water, the temperature, so how hot or cold it is, especially warm temperatures can cause changes to the way rocks look. Living things like tree roots can even cause physical weathering. And the effect of physical weathering is that rocks begin to crumble or break down into smaller pieces, and we call these sediments. So this is a photo that I showed you back during our sedimentary rocks. This photo here, if you look, this rock is in the ocean water. And what happens to the bottom of this, it got kind of chiseled away, broken away. It looks like it's almost been carved. Well, over time, the ocean water waves have washed up and hit the bottom of that rock, causing it to crumble and break apart. And then those sediments go down into the ocean water, which you can kind of see here in the sand around that area. So physical weathering is just changes to how rocks look. So how do you think physical weathering has shaped the Grand Canyon? So if we look at a picture of the Grand Canyon kind of down at the bottom, we can see the river running through there and then these really high walls of the Grand Canyon making up that valley. So if you look, the rocks are really kind of broken apart on the sides of the walls. You can also see that it kind of gradually slopes downwards towards the river. There's different vegetation along the edge. So we want to think about how does physical weathering, how has that shaped the Grand Canyon? Remember, physical weathering is changes to how that rock has looked. So when thinking about that, you may have been thinking about the water in the river causing the Grand Canyon to change, and also the wind. So the Grand Canyon's almost in a desert-like area where it's really hot. There's usually a lot of wind. So this physical weathering process is called abrasion. This is when rocks can rub against each other, and this causes rocks to break apart into sediments. So the river that moves through the Grand Canyon, shown here, will definitely cause rocks to break down over time, and it also causes rocks to become really smooth. So we call this water abrasion. In the Grand Canyon, the wind also plays a big factor and causes rocks to break apart and causes those walls in the valley to break up and crumble. So the water and the wind naturally causes physical changes to how those rocks look in the walls of the valley. So here's another beautiful picture of the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon was created by physical weathering as water from the Colorado River pushed past rocky surfaces of the canyon for millions of years, making it a deeper and deeper V shape. So if you look here, you've got walls of rock on either side, making that kind of V, and that was created by that water moving through there. Salt water, like in the oceans, does a double duty with water and salt, works to break up rocks. But here the Colorado River moving through the Grand Canyon eventually caused rocks to break apart, and the water could make its way through. Also, like I was saying before, the Grand Canyon was created by physical weathering because wind has caused the surface of the different rocks to be exposed, so it breaks the rocks apart, they move away and erode over time. And wind has caused rocks to form into new shapes, like shown over to the right. So you can see how they're in weird shapes. They're kind of chiseled away depending on where the wind can hit them. So again, the water and the wind can change the appearance or the way rocks look. Another type of physical weathering would be called root wedging. This has to do with tree roots. Trees can grow roots in crevices or cracks of rock. You can see this a lot of the time in the sidewalks, especially in Gouverneur on the street where the tennis courts are near the high school. A lot of those sidewalks are really jagged and broken apart and very uneven to walk on. And this is due to the really big trees growing alongside the sidewalks. The roots are grown in there, and roots are really strong. And as they grow and expand, they cause the sidewalks to break apart, causing the roots to crack. This type of weathering also happens in the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon has a variety of trees like spruce, firs, and pines, and these roots can grow into the rock and cause them to crack and break apart. And you can see a lot of broken up rock right here around this tree, kind of at the top of the walls of the Grand Canyon. There's another type of physical weathering. This one mainly happens in colder places in the country, definitely around here in Gouverneur, where water can seep into the cracks in the rocks. So if there's a crack, water can fill in there, and eventually as it gets colder out, it will turn into ice, and ice expands. Okay, and as that ice expands, it then causes the rock to crack and eventually break apart. And over many winters, this will continue to happen until the rock fully breaks apart. And this type of physical weathering, the change to the way a rock looks, leads to potholes in the road. So all of those bumps you hit in mom or dad's car is caused by that physical weathering. And weathering on the physical scale will cause, like I said, large rocks to break into sediments called boulders. And eventually boulders get broken down into cobbles, then pebbles, then into sand, silt, and clay. So boulders are our largest type of sediment or piece of rock, ranging from 25 to 100 centimeters in diameter or across. We then have cobbles, which are a little bit smaller, pebbles, then sand, then silt, and clay. So clay is the smallest size particle, and boulders are the largest size.